Sports episode 854. We are live on YouTube, Joe, in 5, 4, 3. Welcome to the Dirty Sports Podcast. I am your host, Andy Ruther, coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, with my co-host from Southern California, Joey No Chill Prano.
Hello, Andrew.
Good afternoon, Joe.
How's it going? It's even afternoon out here.
It
a
is
little bit of a late start today.
Yes, my apologies to the Dirtball fam on that. We have little health issues with Roscoe, so need all those good vibes Roscoe's way. He's battling pancreatitis. Pancreatitis? Pancreatitis?
I don't know. I think that might be what it is.
Yeah. So I mean, it's fairly serious. So was in the vet for like 3 hours today with him and my girlfriend. So I think he's going to be all right though. We just got to get him on the right diet. He
Domestic life, man. HVAC problems, pet health, paint the house. Here we go. Well,
yeah.
we're all pulling for Roscoe. I'll pray to Jacob DeGrom tomorrow night during his start for him to bless Roscoe with the health.
Well, I think he'll be good. He's a trooper and he's a he's still his rambunctious self, but a lot of
pressure on Roscoe with you guys now moving into the house of Roscoe.
And maybe that was it.
Yeah.
I mean, new surroundings. Doesn't have his go-to spots. That's the big curiosity. Like, what's going to be his go-to spot in the new pad? You know how dogs have their go. You know how Vince loved getting on top of
the top of the couch. Yeah,
and that's Roscoe's move too. It's like dead on same thing. I'll be curious, like, what's going to be the move in the new house? But the bad news for him is we've learned it's probably related to human food, and I guess as dogs get older. And he just turned 11. That's where they can get this problem from human food.
They're like, stop feeding Roscoe Taco Bell, Andy.
Basically, which is going to be a big bummer for him.
Yeah.
But,
you're like, one cheesy gordita crunch for me, one cheesy gordita crunch for Roscoe.
When you said I had Taco Bell
last
week.
Let's go. Ruther's back.
It. No, dude, it's so funny. It was the first night in my house and I have no food. There's nothing. I'm in the burbs, right? Nothing's open late, but there's a Taco Bell that's open late. And I regretted it the minute I ate it. Like the old Andy regretted it maybe the next day. The new Andy regrets it like 5 minutes, if that, later. Just saying, what am I doing to my body? I hated myself going to bed that night. Just the look of disgust. And I felt vile. Like, you need to take a shower. There's certain foods that.
Did you overdo it? Because Taco Bell doesn't really make me feel
I'll be honest.
There
that's
you go.
Why. I'll be honest. That's why.
As far as fast food goes, like if I go to Taco Bell and I get a couple tacos, like, yeah, you don't feel great after, but it doesn't hit me like some other things. Like it doesn't even come close to like if I go to McDonald's. I feel way worse after McDonald's.
Yeah. Like it
Don's.
I only call it Don's now, thanks to Nick D'Alessandro.
I only call it Don's now in mocking Nick D'Alessandro.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I
love that Nick D'Alessandro is Nicky D, and everybody in the world calls McDonald's Mickey D's except Nicky D, who calls it Don's.
That's a good point. We've never really discussed that. I'm glad you brought him up. I'm going to check in on him.
Yeah.
See how he's doing. Big news today, though. We finally, after a year plus, have a suspension for Deshaun Watson. It happened. And it was only 6 games.
Yeah. This is all very, the whole thing, there's so many twists and turns, and there's so much like misinformation, disinformation, all the kinds of things. Obviously, the Texans have settled with the women. Deshaun Watson has not. Last year wasn't suspended, just sat out the year, was kind of said he would never play for the Texans again. So then the Texans, basically asked him not to participate. He misses the whole year, gets paid for the whole year, wasn't suspended last year. That's important.
A great point. I would say that's a good point. It's like I forgot. You forget about that. Before
Not
all this went down
last year, just said he wasn't going to play for the Texans anymore. They were like, oh, okay, well, you were also sexually assaulting dozens of women, so we're fine with that. But we're going to pay you because we're not suspending you. I'm assuming because they were trying to move him, et cetera, et cetera. In the end, gets 6 games. The NFLPA, which is the Players Association, said they're not going to challenge any ruling prior to the ruling that came out. They were not going to challenge it no matter what.
Which was announced last night.
But the league has...
Yeah.
Right.
We can only assume
they says...
Yeah. Sorry, I was going to say we can only assume they knew it was only going to be 6 games.
Right.
Hence they said
but the league has not made a statement as to whether or not they would appeal any suspension. But then you're also like, well, everything we know about the NFL is why would they? They don't they give a less of a fuck than the Players Association normally.
So I'll just say this from the top of my head. All the NFL cares about is money. And if you haven't realized this, then I don't know what sport you're watching. The bottom line for the NFL is revenue, and the game must go on. We've highlighted this time after time again. What affects their bottom line? At the end of the day, Deshaun Watson is a star on the field. So I would argue the NFL wants him on the field. All this negative backlash has never, ever affected the NFL.
Yeah, the NFL has never once considered, except maybe in the Colin Kaepernick situation, how it makes their fans feel.
Which is very interesting.
The letters that they're going to get, which is something, that I bring up all the time when we hear about suspensions in the league. But I think with this particular situation, it's like, the thing to avoid when you're talking about this, and I think for some reason it's like the headline grabbing, tweet clout chasing thing, is to always make a comparison. Ridley got a year for gambling. Deshaun Watson's only getting 6 games. Ray Rice got, whatever. Ben Roethlisberger got this. This guy got this. People love to do, Ridley for gambling, Josh Gordon for smoking weed, and then you come to, these guys who are sexually assaulting people aren't getting nearly as much, which of course is, the kind of the signature move for the NFL to that constantly embarrasses itself and shows that it doesn't care about people and doesn't care about women and doesn't care about like really any of these guys' actions off the field, any of that stuff. But, and then obviously the Colin Kaepernick situation comes up all the time, which is we can talk about all of these things and how absurd the NFL is in gambling and domestic violence and drunk driving and sexual assault, blah, 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 blah. And of course, the guy who got suspended for life was the one who had an opinion. So yeah, that's the thing. But that kind of seems to always be the go-to kind of clout chase thing. But in this situation, if you go through the actual, ruling, I think there's more things to be upset about here in terms of the way this was handled. So they get a judge to, kind of an arbitrator to rule on the case. Now,
quickly, she was chosen and agreed upon by both the NFL and the NFL Players Association, which is very key. Yeah. So they agreed on her, on Judge Robinson, going in. And obviously they chose a female. That was not random. I think they chose a female hoping gender bias would play a role in this.
So if you go to Pro Football Talk, they have a great thread. And it starts with Judd Robinson applying the, quote, preponderance of evidence standard, which means more likely than not, found Watson violated the PCP in 3. That's the player, player. What's the word I'm looking for?
Player conduct policy.
Conduct policy, yes, in 3 different ways: nonviolent sexual assault, posing a danger to safety and well-being of another, undermining the integrity of the NFL. This is where it gets really interesting. The NFL submitted a 215-page investigation report and introduced evidence regarding 5 accusers. One was based on a media report, and Judge Robinson excluded it from the record. So there were 4 accusers who were claims who were considered. So this is like immediately where you get into like, what? So 4 people are being considered. Yeah, out of 24 or more that have accused him. 4 of them have been considered in this. So just keep in mind that this ruling is for 6 games based on his conduct with 4 people, even though he was accused by 24 or more.
Now, let me ask, was that only the 4 women that he didn't settle with?
No, because he has not settled, correct?
No, he has. He settled with the majority of the women.
He has.
He has, correct.
I know the Texans did settled with everybody.
He has as well.
Okay. So, but here's, so you go down. So keep in mind, again, 4 people. Judge Robinson found that Deshaun Watson, A, intended to cause contact with his penis, B, did so for sexual purposes, and C, knew such contact was unwanted. So a judge ruled.
Okay.
He did all 3 of those.
Hold on real quick. Sorry, I hate to cut you off. Yeah, I think I'm correct. So Watson has settled with 20 of the 24 women. I don't know, again, which do the math. Is this the other 4?
Right.
I would assume so. I don't know if I'm correct in that.
Right. So a judge ruled he caused contact with his penis, did so for sexual purposes, and knew such contact was unwanted.
Okay.
So essentially, a judge ruled he sexually assaulted 4 women.
And for the record, late breaking news, which I did not see until now, of those 4, he has settled with 3 today.
Wow.
So there's 1 remaining unsettled of the 24. These are just the civil lawsuits.
The other thing is, like, should that matter whatsoever?
Look, these things bring out such strong opinions, obviously, from people. I agree you shouldn't compare it, what shows how ridiculous the league is, but you should never compare a Deshaun Watson to a Calvin Ridley. It's apples to oranges. Right. Because what did I just say? The NFL, this is the NFL stance. And all these, like you said, and that's the perfect way of putting it, clout chasers. These people are idiots across the board if you bring up the Calvin Ridley thing. The NFL bottom line is money. Deshaun Watson can sexually assault or murder 100 people. That doesn't affect their bottom line. You know what affects their bottom line? If they're worried about the game being tampered because someone's betting on it. Right. That is money. That's Calvin Ridley. Okay. Like, he's the prime example right now that everybody's using. If it's not affecting their bottom line, the NFL does not care. Like you said, it does not care. Now, they thought Colin Kaepernick might be affecting their bottom line. So they obviously blackballed him and were proven guilty in a court of law by settling. So that's all we need to look at. And anybody who's so upset, guys, they've never cared about women ever. And maybe I'm a piece of shit because I am to the point, like I've said, where I like football. I can't really complain about it if I watch it. That's your only out. For everyone out there, all the talking heads, if you have a problem with this, don't watch. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah,
this isn't me justifying it, but I just think, Joe, that like they've never gotten it right. Like, give me an instance where they've gotten it right.
So yeah, no, they've never gotten it right. But I think the thing is, if you look at the Colin Kaepernick situation, which is the NFL, forget the fact that the NFL is basically probably almost exclusively, if not exclusively, run by racists. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're talking about fucking the treatment of their own players generally, the treatment of, you know, young black men in America, whatever. Let's take that out of it entirely. You're looking at that situation, like you said, and it's affecting. They bent the knee to the 5 old guys that every owner got a letter from.
Sure.
So we can say we're going to boycott and we're going to whatever, but the bottom line is they know you're not. So the thing is like, I don't necessarily feel like the answer's, well, if you're going to still watch, then you can't complain about it. And you can't make the NFL hear your voice and say, hey, you guys had a judge rule on this. And now if somebody gets convicted of murder, right? If somebody's flat out convicted of first degree murder, they get a life sentence. If somebody's flat out convicted of 2 first degree murders, they put a life sentence on top of a life sentence. So if you look at this ruling, essentially a judge ruled 1.5 games. You get 1.5 games for sexually assaulting somebody. There was 4 people. The judge ruled he sexually assaulted 4 people on purpose. She ruled this, and he got 6 games. So the NFL, if they don't appeal this, the NFLPA has obviously said they're not going to, but if the NFL doesn't appeal this, the NFL is saying, we agree. If you sexually assault somebody, you should get 1.5 game suspension.
Yeah.
That's absurd.
Well, again, at the end of the day, and not that I don't disagree with you, because I agree with you. I just think it all goes back to the money. And you know, and they know that this is what the NFL is hedging on. And accurately, they are hedging on this. They know people ultimately don't care. Just like those minority of people who are all butthurt about Colin Kaepernick and kneeling and having opinions and players showing their freedom of speech. It was the same situation. All those on boycotting. Go ahead, boycott, dude. You're going to come back. You're going to come back.
Well, I think the thing is, and when we talk about all these things, and that's why it's always absurd to compare it. And the tweets, you know, the tweets with the Calvin Ridley and the tweets with the Roethlisberger and the Ray Rices are absurd. And the Colin Kaepernick ones are always do make a ton of sense because it shows the NFL what the NFL is truly about. The NFL, I agree with you, wasn't even concerned with losing those people because Colin Kaepernick. What the NFL did in the Colin Kaepernick situation, in my opinion, was try to use the greatest scare tactic they could to curtail players having an opinion. They were like, listen, this is actually really dangerous for us because now they can, if we don't show them having, you know, using your free speech in a way that we don't really like is punishable, then they could say anything that they want. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about race. And it could start being about how the NFL takes care of CTE.
It's a control NFL, issue.
Yeah. The big fear for the NFL with Colin Kaepernick was we need to nip this in the bud. You can't just go around saying whatever you want or we'll end your life.
Yeah. For sure that there's power and control issues.
It wasn't about the fucking flag. It wasn't about the military. It was about saying, next thing you know, some guy's going to come out and say the NFL doesn't care about CTE. They're trotting us all out there. They're giving us all brain injuries. And the NFL had to say, listen, you're not allowed to have an opinion about just like whatever you want because we'll end your life.
So,
but the thing in this situation that's insane to me is that they have somebody rule on 4 women. And she just straight up says he's criminally sexually assaulted 4 people and he got 6 games and then hides behind, well, the precedent is it would be absurd to suspend him for a whole season because there's no precedent of suspending somebody for a whole season. It would be such a huge leap from what we did to Ben Roethlisberger. It would be such a huge leap from what they did to Ray Rice. It should be such a huge leap for all of the other, things out there to give him an indefinite suspension or give him a season. And to me, it's like, well, just jumping onto the same shitty precedents doesn't make you like that. That's a bad strategy, in my opinion.
Well, they definitely wanted a full year suspension. Now, Judge Robinson concluded the NFL was trying to change the standards for nonviolent sexual assault without fair notice to the players. Again, like you're saying, based on the precedent, she called the proposed change to the rules extraordinary. Who's calling now? Come on. And the league wanted a full year. Now again, I know I keep saying the same thing, but I'll mention this because the NFL is a business, right? They might be a nonprofit or whatever they're technically considered. They're a corporation. Let's just call it for what it is. I pose this to anyone listening. If you were a business and someone sexually assaulted or was accused of sexually assaulting 30 women, they would no longer have a job 9 out of 10 times. Now, I don't know, maybe if you're a CEO of a big Fortune 500 company, you could still keep that job because, again, if you care that much about money. But I think that's important to bring in. At the end of the day, the NFL could just say, dude, you're a shitty person. Bye. Right? There's nothing stopping them from doing that. I think that's important to consider, right? There's nothing stopping them from doing that.
Where the NFL, I know what's going to happen. I feel like I absolutely know what's going to happen, but it's like the NFL does have an opportunity here to be like, no, not good enough. We appeal. We wanted a year. You came at 6 games. There's got to be a fucking middle ground here. We're appealing. But the NFL is not going to do that.
No.
The NFL is going to get 6 games, and everybody's going to feel like the judge, the NFLPA, and the NFL owners are going to be like, look, we did it. He gets 6 games.
Which is nothing considering it's a 17-game season. And also the Browns will definitely have a chance to make the playoffs with only him getting 6 games.
Which is nothing.
It's nothing.
And he got a fucking raise in the offseason.
And that's kind of my point.
And again, that's only considering 4 of the cases.
We have to remember, if he plays well, no one's going to care. Like, you'll keep bringing it up. I mean, look at Kobe. And I know 1 is different than 30.
But also rape is different than sexual assault.
100%. I mean, look at the evidence. If anybody wants to do it, because it's all out there. Look at the investigators. Look at the DA. They are 100, and that says in 3-ring circus, they're 100% convinced. 100% convinced. They went back.
Same thing for Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, same thing for Ben Roethlisberger. That's my point. They are 100% convinced these things happened, but people don't care. Like, that's my thing. At the end of the day, if you perform, now he comes back week 7 against the Baltimore Ravens, and I called it. I thought it might be against the Bengals. I missed it by a week. I said, he'll be back for that Monday Night Football game, battle of the AFC North, battle of Ohio, Monday Night Football. Sure enough, Joe, his second game back. What are those ratings going to be? What is that viewership going to be? Deshaun Watson, Joe Burrow, Ohio battle, primetime, Monday Night Football. It's going to be huge. And the NFL knows it. And that's why I agree with you. They're not going to appeal this. They want him back for that week 8 primetime game on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll ever change. If they didn't change now, what is going to cause them to change? Look at where we're at as a society, right? The Me Too movement happened. Everything that's discussed with social justice and all these different movements that are happening did nothing to the NFL. Nothing, guys. Nothing.
Because the NFL sells the majority of its everything to men.
Correct.
So unless you get, 100 women outside every NFL game week 1 protesting.
Yeah. And I don't even think that'll matter. Like, like nothing will matter. I mean, you and I had a great bit, I thought, a few weeks ago or a month ago. Like, what would it cost? What would it have to happen for people to stop watching the NFL? I mean,
what would have to happen is women would literally have to be like, until the NFL does something, my husband is not allowed to watch football in the house.
Yeah,
my boyfriend is not allowed to watch football in the house. You go out. No Sunday ticket in our house. We're canceling it all. You have to see a money. You have to see a hit on the money.
100%. And that's all I've ever said. It's the bottom line is the money. And until the NFL's bottom line is affected, none of these suspensions are going to matter. Whether they're Calvin Ridley, Deshaun Watson, Josh, what's his name? Josh Gordon, because I'm just choosing 3 different areas. None of it's going to matter. Guys, not that long ago, NFL players killed people and played. Killed people. Leonard Little, former player for the Rams in the early 2000s during their Super Bowl run, literally killed someone with his vehicle. We're talking about guys murdering somebody, convicted in the court of law. They still play. Like, I mean, I think you made the joke. If OJ could still play, he might be in the backfield of an NFL team right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what would ever change it besides what you said. That's the only logical thing I can think of. If women said, hey, you're not allowed to watch these games anymore. No Sunday ticket. And the number one growing, I don't know if you've seen the numbers, and the numbers don't lie. The number one growing audience for the NFL, not just for watching, but for fantasy football and for gambling, all of that is women.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's like, how could it not be, because the proportion of women to men that watch is so much lower. So there's so much more room for growth in that particular thing. But that's why I think the only way anything would ever change would be if women literally the NFL wouldn't give a shit. They would not give a single shit if women all said, we are not watching or participating in the NFL anymore. We're not going to games. We're not watching. The NFL will be like, okay, fine. Well, we'll be fine. We will proceed on. What the only chance is for women to use their power in a relationship to say, my man is not participating in this anymore.
Or how about this, guys? Because you see it all the time in politics and running political ads and corporations. You got all that angry energy. You're upset. Talk to all the advertisers in NFL Sunday. It's the same thing that just happened in Florida, and people were upset Hulu wouldn't show certain ads for the Democratic Party. Where's that energy? Because that's what you need. Get that energy on the truck commercials, on the alcohol commercials, on the Cialis commercials, on
what the NFL has going for it is women are just under fire, and like the women are like, cool. The NFL is kind of the least of our worries right now.
No, but that's my point. My point is, if you have so much anger, nothing is going to affect these. Nothing's going to change anything until the bottom line is affected. And when companies like State Farm just pump ads every year into NFL games, the NFL says, I don't give a shit. Be mad at me. State Farm is shelling out $100 million every NFL season just for our games. It's like you always say, follow the money. Follow the money. Like, it's actually a really simple recipe, as we know, for everything in life. Just follow the money.
It'll be interesting. I'll be interested to see if the NFL even tries to appeal in a PR spin to seem like they care. We know they don't care. But it'll be interesting to see if they pretend to.
I think you're right.
I don't think they're going to.
Because they've done the pretend. Remember after Ray Rice uppercut his wife? Remember those commercials they did?
Yeah. Black and white.
I think your boy Eli was in one of them.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a mouthpiece. To me, those commercials are the equivalent of every June when the company puts the pride flag on their Twitter avatar.
Yeah.
Like, they care. It's like, do you really care about this cause? I don't think so. It's just It's just to look like you care. And at the end of the day, this was announced August 1st. And there's so much excitement surrounding the season. Like, how much of this is a story, Joe, come actual regular season?
I mean, I think it'll be a story in every single national televised game, but then also of the Browns. And, I think it'll be mentioned every game. But then at the same time, we know every network that has a deal to broadcast NFL games is told what they can and can't say and put that in, so it'll be covered more on certain places that don't have NFL deals, and it'll be covered other places. But, at the same time, the NFL knows exactly what it's doing.
Yeah. I always say
they'll let people talk about it, but they're not going to let people, your boy Chris Collinsworth on the first Sunday night football game with Deshaun Watson isn't gonna run down the list of accusations.
No way.
A little trouble off field the last year. We're seeing him returning.
Oh, spot on. You're spot on. Something like a little trouble off the field.
Yeah. We all know, it'll be the thing that we're all supposed to have already done all of our own legal paperwork on. We all know the things that he dealt with in the past 2 seasons. Do we? Does the girl in the kitchen making wings for her husband and all his friends, does she know? She hears that. She's like, what happened with that guy? Do you think she knows? Do you think a random NFL fan's wife or girlfriend just knows that there's a guy in the NFL that was accused of sexually assaulting 30 women?
That's a great question. It's a great question. I'd say no. Obviously, he's a star in the NFL. He's not a Tom Brady star. He's not that household name. I'd argue no. And to be honest, I think a lot of women might not even care, again, because football is growing at such a rapid rate with women. So I don't know who ultimately is going to even care. Let's not forget, they didn't mention any of this in Big Ben's final game. Remember that final game?
No. Yeah.
You can't just ignore rape and sexual assault and murder. Ray Lewis has a statue.
The NFL's like, I think we've proven that you can, Andy. Like, you can't just, no, you can.
You're right. Guys, Ray Lewis has a statue. He's connected to 2 murders. Whether he murdered those people or not, he was involved. There is a white, bloody suit that has been hidden. It's like finding the Ark of the Covenant. It's never been found. This white, bloody suit of Ray Lewis on a night of a Super Bowl. They're partying. You'd think you'd be able to find a white, bloody suit.
I'm pretty sure it's in a vault with P. Diddy's white, bloody suit from his murder night on the town.
Yeah, in New York. I mean,
yeah.
Nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it. We just got a text from Randy Ruther.
Yeah. Randy Ruther was like, and you know how many jerseys he's going to sell in Cleveland? To which I chalk up to just Ohio being Ohio more than anything.
I don't think that's an Ohio thing. I think it's a football thing. People don't look at Pennsylvania. Look at Big Ben.
Yeah.
People don't care.
People
don't care.
Pennsylvania and Ohio. Camera 1, camera 2. Camera 1, camera 2. I call him Mini-Me. Come on.
Are we really that similar?
Come on.
Are we really that similar?
Ohio and Western Pennsylvania?
You know, that's a big high school football game. Did you know that? Because obviously Ohio and Pennsylvania produce so many like stud football players. So the game that they play every year from the best football players from Ohio and the best from Pennsylvania, they call it the Big 33. I assume it's just 33 players from each state play. Well, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but it's going to play out how we assume it'll play out. They'll make a fake attempt to care, or they don't at all. The season rolls in. You're right.
And Roger Goodell will make a statement saying that they have decided not to appeal. They're going to honor the judge's decision. They're going to list her credentials. They're going to say, we're not happy with it, but we're going to honor the, neutral arbitrator. But because we're not happy, we're going to make a donation of this much money to this foundation that supports women's rights to blah, 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 blah. And then NFL kickoff.
Sure. 100%. Well, in strictly
and then
football,
if a player says, I want to take this opportunity before, the first game to say that, I don't approve of how the NFL treats women and also how they treat their own. They'll be like, okay, you're banned for life. Or, in fact, you're going to disappear mysteriously. We're just going to have Ray Lewis murder you, and then we'll pretend you never existed.
From a moral standpoint, I don't have the answer for anybody, right? Like I said, we're out here supporting this league. It's kind of like Michael Jackson. Do you still listen to his music, or do you say, hey man, I watched that documentary? I mean, I'm just posing this question kind of rhetorically to everybody listening. It's one of those things where everybody wants to judge, especially on social media in particular. But at the end of the day, I don't know. Like, I don't have an answer. That's up to the individual, but just follow the money. That's the only thing I can keep saying. Follow the money. If this doesn't affect the NFL's bottom line, they're not going to care. Not yesterday, not today, not tomorrow. For some reason, they thought Colin Kaepernick would affect their bottom line. They thought players protesting would affect their bottom line, or just standing or kneeling, whatever it was.
Well, it's
control and power.
And here's the situation exactly. They were worried that would be an epidemic amongst players. Suddenly, players, because here's the thing. The NFL does a great job being league first, shield first, no one's bigger than the game. But like, as more and more we get into the player empowerment era, as more and more we get into the social media era, all of these guys have a platform and they have a voice of their own. In the 80s and the 90s, if you were, I don't know, Joe Montana, and you wanted to get your opinion out there, you had to go sit in your locker after the game and talk about it. A player saying something to the media in his locker before or after a game or whatever is going to make it out to people slower and to less people than somebody putting something on their Instagram.
Sure.
So what the NFL wanted to curb with the Colin Kaepernick thing is, we don't want players essentially giving their opinion on things. We want to try to muzzle them the best we can. And in this era where it's very easy to get your opinion out, we need to make it known that you can do it, but we'll find a way. We'll find a way. You might not get actually suspended. You might not actually fined, but we'll find a way behind closed doors to make sure that you never work again. And to answer your question, Andy, in terms of like, how could anything ever happen? The only way is for a star player right now, for a Patrick Mahomes or an Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady, to say, I have a wife and I have 2 daughters. And the idea that one of those girls could get sexually assaulted one day and it would be worth a game and a half in the NFL is ridiculous. Yeah. We know those guys aren't going to do it, but that would be the only way.
Sure. Yeah, you're right.
And the guys who don't have, the status in the league aren't going to say it because they're just trying to have a career.
Yeah, for sure.
And the guys who do know where their bread's buttered, and they're not about to put their $400 million contract at risk to stand up for women.
Yeah.
There might be one guy. It's always interesting to see like who is that guy, who has the potential of being like, I've made a lot of money, but I also think this is important. That's essentially what Colin Kaepernick was, right? And everybody loves to point out that, oh, he had just gotten benched or whatever. But it's like the bottom line was he had a huge contract and he was financially taken care of. And he knew that there was potential of this happening to him. But he's like, but I have enough money where I've already made it. So why don't I just give my opinion? And if they fucking ban me from the league, whatever, it's not like I'm going to be poor.
And if a player does speak out, it's no different than any other fraternity, right? Whether it's like cops or firefighters or teachers or whatever. I'm just using those examples. My point is people don't usually speak out against their own, so to speak.
Yeah.
And the truth is
that's what happened with the NFLPA. The union said, we're not going to,
And that's the truth. If players speak out and say, hey, what are we doing here? 6 games?
But if you go against the union, now you're putting yourself above the players and same thing. That's precisely why cops can never get in trouble.
No, for sure. Exactly.
Protect them.
Exactly. And it's the same way here with the union and the NFLPA. So I know it sounds kind of demoralizing from a moral viewpoint that, wow, this is what we're going to do, 6 games. But I think we've laid out the only way this changes.
Here's one thing I'll say, and we'll wrap it up because we have a lot of things to cover today. If you're a professional sports league and Major League Baseball is doing anything better than you at all, you fucked up. Major League Baseball gets nothing right, essentially. And I would argue they didn't even get the Trevor Bauer situation right. But they probably got it wrong for moral reasons. They probably got it wrong trying to be moral about it.
I see your point.
And
your point is the league would err on the side of caution to say, hey, maybe all this is true. And if that's the case, we're throwing the book at him from a moral standpoint, even though you're arguing is probably wrong as far as what they got, as far as how they handled it.
Right.
I see your point.
And I go back to if Major League Baseball is doing anything better than you, even if it's like policing morality, you fucked up.
Yeah. Even Joe Prano from the past agrees with you in the background.
Yes.
He's staring. He's Joe Prano of the back. Joe Prano of the past is looking up at the TV screen from the old Smut studio and just he's looking at that list of women. He's like, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4. The look on his face is like, does this list end? It's like a never-ending list of women. And that's what and we'll wrap it up. That's seriously what you have to think about for a minute. Like 30 women, man. Like 30.
But they just considered 4.
Yeah. And I remember you did that funny bit when we were talking about comparing the Trevor Bauer thing. This is not a he said, she said. Like
he said, she said, she said, she said, she said, she said,
yeah.
she said, she said.
30 times.
30 times.
Like they don't give a shit. I mean, it's wild. Now let's move on to non-Deshaun Watson NFL news. Debo Samuel signed a contract extension. And I like this for both sides because it's not a massively long deal. It's a 3-year, $73.5 million max. He's guaranteed $58 million. He'll be 28, not 29 this year. I like this because it's not like a long-term deal, but he still gets a lot of guaranteed and his value, I think, will still be good the next 3 years. I think this is a win for both sides.
Absolutely. It's probably a bigger win for the Niners than it is for Debo Samuel, but yeah,
agreed.
Agreed.
And obviously,
and the idea that, there was talk that he wanted to leave and he wanted out and whatever. And it's like, if you're the 49ers and obviously you've moved on from Jimmy G, but you were in an NFC Championship game. Debo Samuel is probably the single biggest part of that.
Sure.
You move on from Jimmy G, you have to make sure you take care of Debo Samuel one way or the other, because you're not rebuilding.
No,
you're not. A team that just made the NFC Championship game doesn't go rebuild.
You were a quarter away
from
making the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
With Jimmy G, you were that close. And obviously Debo is the centerpiece of that offense.
Yeah.
So versatile, so many different things he can do. That's good for all the fantasy owners out there, right? He's like total fantasy guy.
Yeah.
That's what people love. The baseball trade deadline, is that tomorrow?
It's tomorrow at noon, I believe, noon Eastern.
Wow. So we're going to have some big things happen then, huh?
Or 3 p.m. Maybe it's noon here, 4. I don't know it, but it's tomorrow. Yeah. A lot's already happened. Josh Hader to the Padres.
I saw that. So they're swapping closers and some other guys?
Yeah, essentially. But Rogers for the Padres will likely not move into their closer role. He'll likely move into a 8th inning guy or setup man or one of those roles. Hader locking it down. I mean, I actually think this is a pretty good trade for both teams. The thing that's weird about this situation from the Brewers is the Brewers get prospects without like really downgrading that much, but at the same time, and everybody's saying, how are you selling if you're in first place? Right. And I think that's totally valid. Now, the argument against that, I've seen people say they didn't get worse with this deal, which I would argue that that's not true. First of all, but I would agree that they only get slightly worse because I would say Josh Hader has postseason experience. And Josh Hader, I'd rather go to somebody, if him and Rogers are a coin flip statistically, I'd rather go with somebody who's been there and done that if you're trying to really win. Now, the other part of it for the Brewers is they've also made other guys available, like Colton Wong's available. And so it's like you can say that the Josh Hader move alone doesn't mean they're selling, but it certainly seems like they're putting it out there that they are selling in some ways. Now, a smart, well-run baseball team can sell and get better long-term and still compete. Like, I don't hate this move, but I like this move for the Padres, who have a guy that they feel like they can't trust, and they go out and get a guy who maybe statistically is comparable at the moment, but you get a guy that you think you can trust more in the postseason because you're trying to win right now. Yeah. And also the Padres don't give up any of their big name prospects because supposedly still trying to work other deals, potentially still on the Juan Soto, train, whatever. Yeah. So I kind of like it for both teams, but I do question the Brewers a little bit in terms of pretending they're not selling and the people that are justifying it by saying they're not selling. It's like, that may be true based on this deal alone, but if you go start selling other guys, then how are you not selling?
Sure. Well, the Mariners made another big trade. They're just going to take all the old Reds players. Adding Luis Castillo over the offseason, they obviously added Eugenio Suarez and Jesse Winker. So they get a bona fide number one to their rotation. The Reds get prospects.
It's this Mariners team specifically in relation to the Reds reminds me a lot of the Florida Marlins circa 4 or 5 years ago, where every single guy on that Marlins team has gone on to be a cornerstone for another team. Giancarlo Stanton, Yelich, JT Realmuto, Ozuna. Like, you take those guys off that team and you're like, they're the big piece that gets added to another team. Meanwhile, they were all on the same team together, and that team cried, "We can't win." And so it's almost like a little bit, it's kind of showing truly how poorly run a franchise is in the Marlins and in the Reds. It's like, if you take every guy off the Reds and put them on another team and suddenly those teams, it pushes them over the edge. How is it possible that you guys can't win a fucking division with all those guys on your team? And it's because you have minor holes and you refuse to fill them by spending any money.
Sure. Well, the idea of prospects, I always laugh at. I was texting with CT and, he's talking about some of the guys and how the shortstop can really mash. And I was like, dude, that's great. I know you've seen him. He's seen him in person in minors. I was like, but majors is different for sure. And I'm not saying some of these guys don't pan out, but this whole cycle that a city and an organization like the Reds do, it creates empathy. You just don't. And to me, that's the worst thing you can have as a fan, when you just don't care. So when you do the rebuild process over and over and over again, people like me, I just, dude, I'm done. I like, you know what I'm saying? Like the Reds could be great in 3 years. Cool. I got three more seasons of this.
The thing about baseball makes it different than the NFL and the NBA. I don't know what the situation in hockey is, to be totally honest with you. I'm not competent enough in hockey, but it seems like you see these guys in hockey, the McDavids and the Gretzkys and the whatever, who come along and change franchises. Is you could be the single greatest player in the history of the sport. You can't alone change a franchise. You could be the single best pitcher. You could be, Nolan Ryan and Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom all in one. You can only pitch once every 5 days. Yeah. The rest of your rotation sucks. It doesn't matter. We've seen that with Jacob deGrom. We've seen a generational guy go 12 and fucking 14 on a team and win the Cy Young because the rest of the rotation fucking sucks.
Well, and not just even the pitchers. We see that with Mike Trout. We saw that with
one
A-Rod.
player doesn't do it.
We saw it with A-Rod, and that was why that quote from Derek Jeter, which I've watched the first 2 episodes. That quote from Derek Jeter is the most stupid, ignorant. Like, it gets me angry. I saw on Twitter, then I saw in person about, you can talk about, when Jeter says you can talk about all the stats you want, who hits a better average, who has more home runs, who has more stolen bases. Yeah, that's what you do in baseball. And then Derek Jeter says, I'm talking about championships.
Right.
Dude, there's 9 guys in the fucking field.
Right. And baseball, it's so like each player, no matter how good you are, it can only change so much value. Yeah, that was the most offensive thing ever, because the bottom line is, if A-Rod and Jeter switch teams to start,
get out of here.
Alex Rodriguez goes down as the greatest player in baseball history. He has all the records. He's in the Hall of Fame. His numbers retired, whatever. And Derek Jeter's in Seattle, and he's Felix Fermin. And that's that. And that's fucking that. But the bottom line is, guys can only do so much. So even if you have an incredible farm system, you bring up 3, 4, 5, you could look at a core and be like, these 6 guys are the shit. Look at the Houston Astros. Okay. But the Astros went and gave Justin Verlander a fucking ton of money.
Sure.
They went and gave Zach Greinke a ton of money. They went and got guys to fill holes that were veterans.
Well, the Cardinals are the great example of the mid-major doing that, when they go get Arenado and they get Goldschmidt. Like, they have a whole history. They go back to McGuire. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have a whole history of getting guys, again, quote unquote, mid-major market, to fill in the holes, to make them consistently a playoff contender, a World Series contender.
Which, I mean, even go back to, I know all the people are reliving the 90s dynasty that the Yankees are through the captain. I mean, the most hilarious thing of all time is always Yankee fans talking about the core four. Jeter, Posada, Bernie Williams, Mariano Rivera, or Andy Pettitte, Mariano Rivera, which whoever the fucking core 4 are. First of all, these are guys they just overpaid to stay. But second of all, we're like pretending they don't go get huge free agent Tino Martinez. Huge, just go through the first baseman that they had through the years. I mean, fucking Tino, Giambi, Teixeira. You look at second, you got, Knobloch. You got third base, you got Brocious or Boggs or Ventura. You look at
trading for guys like I'm watching this and I'm remembering, oh yeah, I forgot the Reds traded David Wells to the Yankees. You know what I'm saying? Like, guys who are just great.
Jack McDowell comes to the Yankees.
Yeah. And
Jimmy Key comes to the Yankees. Wetland comes to the Yankees. David Wells comes to the Yankees. Pettitte comes back to the Yankees. Roger Clemens comes to the Yankees. It's all you can talk about, but that's the Yankees did what every team should do. They just did it on a massive level. Yeah, sure. You can have prospects, and those prospects can be good, and those prospects can hold down a position for 15 years. And you can just pretend it was Derek Jeter for the 15 years he held down shortstop. But what they did is they had a revolving door of huge free agent signings at every other fucking position.
Well, look, here's equivalent I can put with building these teams to my own life right now. Right, I just bought a house. Like, there's a lot of work to be done. Truthfully, like, I started the process, and it's gonna be like we're gonna repaint the entire house. Right, that's a lot of painting. There's other things that need to be done. There's it, but Joe, if my house is at the same point that it is now, today, August 1st, 2022, and August 1st, 2023, my girlfriend's gonna be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, and to me, that's the equivalent of someone who's a Cincinnati Reds fan. You say, okay, I'll give it some time, and I will. As far as, I don't expect the Reds to be competing for a World Series every year. But if we're doing this rinse, repeat, recycle, the whole thing every year, every few years, like, why do I want to invest in that?
Well,
As a fan.
the bottom line is, for baseball, unlike other sports, you can be mediocre and you can make a bunch of money because people just go to the ballpark to go to the ballpark.
Yeah.
Now, where the Reds fucked up is you have an owner that goes out there before the season and says, we're not going to try and we don't care. And that can hurt your fucking butt. But otherwise, if you're a team that just plays middling baseball every year and keeps your fans happy and keeps your fans, does just enough to delude your fans in the offseason, which we'll get to, deluded fans later in the show, just enough of a move here, enough of a move there to delude your fans into thinking they have a chance. Oh, then you stockpile money in the first half of the year. And then the second half of the year, when you're shit, you trade for some prospects. They come over, they come to see the prospects play. They start feeling good. They talk themselves into the prospects going forward. It's the whole fucking same old song and dance, but it's profitable in baseball.
Yeah. No, for sure. And again, to bring it back to money, as we talked about the first part of the show with the NFL, that's all that matters. That's what I always say to fans. I mean, you said it best, like this year, like, guys, if you really want to see change, if you're like a Reds fan, do not go. Because if their bottom line is affected, they might change things. And that's the same for any business, right? If people stop going to your restaurant, they might make changes. But until you do that, they're not going to make any changes. Where does Soto go?
I have no idea. Probably the Dodgers. I'm going to say the Dodgers just because the Dodgers have such a deep farm system and because they've made this move so many times in the past few years. I'm going to say the Dodgers. Seems like the Padres are trying. I'm sure the Yankees are trying.
Yeah.
Seems like the Mets don't want to give up some. It seems like the Mets don't want to overpay, and it seems like the Nationals would try to make them overpay being in division. So it seems like the Mets have maybe even taken themselves out of the race, which I still don't really understand from the Nationals point of view, because you have owners who are trying to sell the team, unless they're concerned about new ownership trying to pay a fucking reduced price because they just gave their best star to a division rival that's already overspending, that's already shown. It's like, so the idea of buying a team when you have another team in the division that is poised to be, the next Yankees when it comes to how they approach spending. So I get that. So I'm going to go with the Dodgers.
Well, that's a problem again with baseball, where the rich just keep getting richer. Again, you look at the NFL, it's like, it's not always the big market.
Right.
More times than not, it's not.
Because there's a salary cap.
Yeah. And the same way in the NBA, right? Like, you have teams from smaller markets that can compete, that can be just as good. And that sucks. That sucks. I don't know how they don't see that as as a league. Hey, this isn't good for us. If all the big teams, or maybe they do, maybe they say, hey, LA is the second biggest market. He's a star. That's great. They probably do. I don't know. We'll follow it along with everyone else. 24 hours. Does it end? So like until midnight? What's the official time?
No, it's midday tomorrow.
Okay. Midday tomorrow. Well, in sad NBA news, Bill Russell passed away yesterday at age 88. Bill Russell, who you and I reference a lot on this show, Not that we obviously saw him play, but just because he has 11 rings, and we
Yeah.
get into the whole ring counting discussion.
Well, I think, first of all, rip Bill Russell. I mean, one of the all-time greats, no matter how you slice it. A guy that has an incredible, was always an incredible spokesman, just in sports in general, in basketball, in the NBA. Obviously a tumultuous relationship with Boston fans that he was outspoken about, all that stuff about race, everything. Like, Bill Russell was an awesome dude. And, we talk a lot about sort of the all-time greats and our all-time top 5 and our all-time top 10. And I have a bunch of different ways, when people ask me, who's your whatever? And immediately I'll be like, do you want to know guys that I watch play, or do you want to know just like where I rank? Because the thing with Bill Russell is, to me, Bill Russell is a top 5 player of all time. And that's coming from somebody who didn't watch him play. That's coming from accolades alone and success alone. And he's, where does he rank? Who is he? I don't know, because I didn't watch him play. And how do I rank? But in terms of the legacy of what he was able to accomplish, it's insane to not have him up there above other guys. The other thing about Bill Russell, and we talk a lot about, ring counting, like you said, and how someone should be, how someone's rings should be counted. And we all know that I'm I'm a LeBron over Jordan guy. We all know that I'm Peyton Manning, sneaky, might be the best quarterback of all time kind of guy. We all know that I'm a Derek Jeter is highly overrated guy. So I count rings in a way, but I also think that, they can only be counted so much. I think being able to accomplish being a championship player, if given a roster, is sort of one level. And then having, multiple championships is another. When you get into ring counting in terms of this guy has more than this guy, I'll say this one thing about Bill Russell. If you're a guy out there who says Jordan greater than LeBron because Jordan has 6 and LeBron has 4, Kobe better than LeBron because Kobe has 5, Brady over Peyton Manning because Brady has the most rings ever, Derek Jeter's the greatest shortstop of all time because he has 5. If you're a guy that makes those arguments, Bill Russell's the single greatest athlete that ever walked the earth, and no one is better than him in professional sports. 11 rings in 13 seasons, 8 straight at one point, 10 consecutive finals appearances. If you are the kind of person that says there is no argument to be had between Peyton Manning and Tom Brady has 7 rings. The single greatest team sport athlete of all time is Bill Russell.
Yeah, it just makes logical sense if you're taking that side.
If you're one of those guys. See, I'm a LeBron is the greatest basketball player of all time. But if you go, how is LeBron better than Jordan? Jordan has 6. Or LeBron's not even better than Kobe, who has 5. Well, then
that's where you've lost the argument.
Then Bill Russell is the single best basketball player in NBA history, and it's not even close.
Yeah, it's not close.
If you're a ring guy, if you're a Brady over Peyton guy because rings, then Bill Russell is the single greatest team sport athlete in the history of professional sports.
So, that's my thing with coaches. I probably am a ring guy, right? Who's won the most titles? I would argue Phil Jackson's the best coach of all time. I would argue Bill Belichick's the greatest coach of all time. Nick Saban's the greatest college coach. I would argue because of rings with coaches. Now, I would not argue that with players because I think a lot more goes into it with players. And that doesn't mean I'm not open to arguments on other coaches being the GOATs in their field. I'm not with players. But when you do that, with coaches, when you do that with players, exactly. If you start bringing in 6s greater than 4, and again, I mean, that's what Jeter does in that documentary, which is, it's just, It's like, dude, you're just being an asshole. Like you're being a fucking, like you can see it actually worked me up because I'm just like, dude, you're just an asshole. You're just an asshole for saying it's just such a dumb comment. You know how hard it is to win baseball games by yourself. Like, what are we even talking about here?
Yeah.
Now, basketball definitely is a little different.
When I judge athletes and like, listen, it doesn't matter where Joe Prano ranks people other than the fact that people, I have a sports podcast and you listen to the show. But of course, championships are considered when you're judging athletes.
For sure.
Of course they are. Phillip Rivers and Eli Manning are like, have remarkably identical careers. All the games they played in a row, they're traded for each other, all the things. But in the end, Eli Manning got the rings. Phillip Rivers didn't. You could argue Phillip Rivers was on better teams than Eli Manning ever had and didn't get it. It's like it is a boost to Eli Manning's career that he's 2-time Super Bowl MVP. It is a knock on Phillip Rivers' career that he never even played in a Super Bowl.
For sure.
Because they're so similar in the types of teams they had where they came in the league at the same time, they played under the same everything, right? So yeah, you consider it, but it's not the end all be all. Dan Marino is one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen. But if you look at his playoff numbers, they're mediocre at best, and he never won a Super Bowl. Now you could say, well, if you had been on those early Elway Bronco teams, that they're okay, but we can play hypothetical all day, every day. But to me, it's like getting there. Like I was a big Peyton Manning can't get it done guy. Then Peyton Manning did get it done. Then Peyton Manning came to another team, immediately made them a Super Bowl team, and then immediately made them a Super Bowl winner right after. And I'm like, okay, that Peyton argument is out the fucking window. And I was like, Peyton would be the greatest of all time if he could fucking get it done. And then he did. So you take it that. The bottom line about Bill Russell is Bill Russell, the finals MVP is named after Bill Russell. That Boston Celtics team was built around Bill Russell. And Bill Russell won 11 times in 13 years. If you give tie breaks, if you give end all be all, if you give, hey, this guy's got one more in, then Bill Russell is your GOAT. Not in basketball, in sports.
Yeah.
If you're a Tom Brady stan because of the rings, Bill Russell's the greatest athlete of all time. And I'm fine, by the way. That's actually what I'm here for. On the day after Bill Russell dies, that's the soapbox to be on. You can be that guy. Yeah. I'm here for that argument.
Sure.
I'm here for the argument. Championships greater than everything. It's all about championships. You play sports to win rings. You're that guy. Don't fucking bring up Michael Jordan in my presence. Don't bring up fucking don't say Derek Jeter is better than a better Yankee than Mickey Mantle or fucking Yogi Berra, because rings over everything.
You know what? We always talk about privilege, right? Today in society. And here's an interesting thought I just had. We should talk about sports and athlete privilege, right? I'm being serious. Like, this is, again, because of what I saw last night. We talk about privilege. I mean, and this is something important, like knowing your place, whether you were born in a nice area, you grew up, you had things, there's that privilege, which for sure is real. Just like there's sports privilege. That's all I'm saying. There's athlete privilege. Like Derek Jeter had sports privilege. He did. Like you were put in a
Tom Brady had sports privilege.
100%. Tom Brady had great sports privilege, if I can say the word correctly. You were put in a great position. And I just wish we talk about understanding how we were, again, how you grew up or the privilege you had. I just wish athletes would see that and have humility in that regard and say, hey, man.
I think a lot of them do. And others don't. I think Tim Duncan is probably like, I had the greatest coach. What a great team that was put around me. I came to a team that already had David Robinson. Yeah. I came to whatever. But that's why Tim Duncan is the quiet, nice, honest Mr. Fundamental, whatever. You don't hear Tom Brady talk about Matt Castle's 11-win season all that often. You just see them. We ain't going nowhere. We ain't. All the memes and all the fucking, Tom Brady doesn't talk about often that, he had to split time in college. I split time is what drove me to be better.
I don't know. Maybe he does on his docuseries.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's all we have now is propaganda docuseries on great athletes that just heighten their greatness to a new level. How many episodes is the Jeter doc?
I think it's 6.
How many have been released?
I believe maybe 4. I've only watched 2.
So you've watched the same 2 I have.
Yeah.
It's hilarious, dude. You watch these things and you're just like.
Well, we talked about it on Dirty Slides. Did you listen to the Dirty Slides at all?
I haven't yet.
Okay. But I said, keep your eye out because obviously our audience on this show is much bigger than the audience on Dirty Slides. But so for the people who haven't heard, I say, keep your eye out for just the fraudulent claim that Derek Jeter grew up a Yankee fan, and keep your eye out for things that just look suspicious to you. And then you sent me the same picture of the thing that I
was texting you Friday night.
I laughed out loud when I first saw it. And you texted me fully photoshopped.
Well, it's a picture of a uniform, a Yankees.
The claim is Derek Jeter had a full Yankee uniform
stapled to his wall,
nailed to the wall of his childhood home. Keep in mind that his childhood home looks like the set of fucking, from Archie Bunker. Yeah. There's just like,
Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of what I would call sus things happening.
Yeah.
Which to me,
Derek
it's like
Jeter wore a Yankees hat every day of his childhood. We have 0 pictures of it.
Well, that was my thing. They show pictures later, but when they're talking about it, they don't show a single picture. And I agree with what you said.
He had a Yankees chain. Where is it?
Where is it? The fact that he had no clue where the Yankees were drafting.
Hall of Famer Dave Winfield specifically remembers meeting a 7-year-old Derek Jeter.
That was a good one.
Dave Winfield, who played in New York and probably has met 14 million Yankees fans. I remember Derek Jeter's dad. I remember like it was yesterday. So I'm outside Tiger Stadium. Why do you remember that?
That was pretty good.
Did he rob you? Why would you ever remember a random meeting? I remember it.
My favorite person in that is the barber. You know what I'm talking about? He keeps talking about taking a bite out of the apple. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Like, that's my favorite part in these documentaries when they bring people in. And they do it with the Magic Johnson one with the women who knew Cookie.
Yeah.
The 3 black women, you know what I'm talking about? It's like they bring in these people that just say ridiculous shit and they just keep giving them lines.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you cut Derek Jeter's hair. Yo, I was a rapper, but I did. He said he was a rapper and went on tour with Diddy, but then cut hair on the side. I want to be like, you're a shitty rapper then, man. Like, no offense. Like I know from a comedy background, you got to have, like, that's not your main thing and you need to work, but he's hyping it up. He's like, I just got off tour with Diddy. And then Diddy was like, you still cutting hair? And I'm like, yeah, on the side. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Are you like big enough to be on tour with Diddy, but you're still cutting hair on the side? And you were cutting Jeter's hair, and then you introduced.
Also, can we just agree that Derek Jeter's flat top era was absurd? That like every time Jeter had a fucking baseball cap off during the flat, you were just like, what is this haircut?
Yeah, man. These documentaries are wild. I don't know if they're as wild as the Detroit Lions fans, though. I mean, we gotta just get this under control, Detroit.
This is truly becoming like this is going to be a new dirty sports topic. This is like Jameis 101. This is going to be a topic that we explore that no one else is exploring.
Oh yeah, I love it
because no one gives a shit about the Detroit Lions except for Detroit Lions fans, right?
Yeah.
So no one cares clearly about Detroit Lions fans. You know, we all have to deal with Patriots fans and Yankees fans and Lakers fans and Cowboys fans. We have to deal with them. They're everywhere. No one's like a random Lions fan living in fucking Arizona. You know, there's no Randy Ruther of Lions fans, right?
There have to be.
There are, but not like that. But my point is, no one's really shining us. Like, people barely give a fuck about the Lions in general. No one gives a fuck about their fans. But we have dipped our toe in with Lions Reddit, and now we're getting calls and tweets from Lions fans. And I'm here to say it. Lions fans might be the most delusional fan base in all of sports.
Wow. More delusional than Cowboys fans?
I mean, the Cowboys at least compete. Cowboys fans convince themselves every year that instead of going 8-8, they're winning the Super Bowl, which is, dude, the difference between like a Cowboys team that wins 10 games and makes the playoffs. They're 2 or 3 wins away from, like, Dak Prescott has been 3 wins away from a Super Bowl, 2 wins away from a Super Bowl. We have Lions fans talking. I have a Lions fan tweeting me they might make the wild card game. Dude, you guys won 3 games last year.
So this is what I want to end today's show on. And we'll do calls next week. Thursday. 310-359-8365. I'm going to play a call from a Lions fan because we were laughing about this before the show.
Because I said to you, so listen, let me give you the tweet thread first. And I got to call this guy out by name because Nathan Baracki, like, bro. And then we'll also shine a light on the caller. But he tweeted me $100 on your Lions over under and better than the Jets. I won't be Mac. And he basically said he won't be a Mac and Welch. I said, well, first of all, I set my over under at 4.5 because I think that's the perfect number. I have no idea if there'll be 4 or 5, but it'll be right there. But I'll definitely take the bet if you give me under the Vegas 6.5 plus worse than the Jets. If they're either, I win. Meaning if they go under 7 games or they have a worse record than the Jets, I win. He said, and I was like, oh, this is going to be like a Kyle Aronofsky situation with my Fitzpatrick bet. Like, we're going to have to go to a neutral fucking judge to like settle the situation. No, he immediately comes back with, I will accept, book it. Lions minimum 8 wins. A quote, bite your knees off Dan Campbell has me drinking that Kool-Aid. Lions win week 1 against Eagles and put on a show! !
Unbelievable.
Medium pizza Jared Goff is playing for his career and has a system tailored for him, which I don't know what that means. Like, there's no West or East mentioned in the system. This year with better talent on both sides of the ball. If no injuries, I'll go out on a limb and say wild card spot as well. And I replied, you should be in an asylum.
Oh man, this is great.
Jared Goff, wild card. Jared Goff won a wild card, made a wild card round with the Rams.
Yeah.
And who went on to win the Super Bowl the second they got rid of him.
Yeah. And talk about a system tailored. You know who tailored their system for him?
Yeah.
Sean McVay, who's an offensive genius. I mean, what is,
by the way, also, do you want to know what quarterbacks have a system tailored for them? All of them.
Yeah, true.
All of them.
Look,
essentially every single quarterback has a system tailored for them.
The Lions are in what I would deem a weaker division, so they can win some games. But guys, 8 wins.
I think that
Jared Goff is terrible. He's terrible.
I think the Vikings are mediocre and going to get worse. I think the Bears are bad, probably going to get better though. The idea that you're just going to like split games with the Bears and the Vikings, just like chalk it. But yeah, we're just going to split with them. Based on what?
Let's not forget, because to me, it's all about quarterbacks. And that's the same for you. That's all I care about. To me, it's all about quarterbacks. Can you win games with quarterbacks? You cannot win. Jared Goff was given over $100 million guaranteed. Stan Kroenke wrote a check for him for over $100 million. And then Stan Kroenke, 3 years later, I don't remember what exactly it was, said that was the worst check ever. I am cutting ties. I'm eating crow. Let's hit the reset button. They go get Matthew Stafford. My point is, most owners are not doing that. They did that with Jared Goff. That's how bad he was. If I recall, we have now downgraded him from not just a medium pizza. I think he turned into the old Pizza Hut Book It pizza, the personal pizza that you get if you read enough books on the Book It program growing up. He's a Book It pizza, bro. I can't get over this delusion. And then we got a call. Now, I don't know what's worse, the take or the phone line the Fat Jason Kid called in from.
Cat Jason Kid.
Cat Jason Kid, who we love. We love you, Cat Jason Kid.
Also, shocking that he's a Lions fan. There's only so many cats to choose from. He's either going to be a Lions fan or a Panthers fan or a Jaguars fan.
That's great. He does like one
or
of the
Bengals fan.
All shitty teams, for the record. I mean, the Bengals are good now, but you know, not the best organizations to choose from. So Cat Jason Kidd calls in, the artist formerly known as Fat Jason Kidd. And he's riding this Lions. He's riding the Lions too. Listen to this.
Hey, Joe and Andy, it's Fat Jason Kidd.
By the way, it
here.
sounds like, you know, when you hear a call from like a 1930, it sounds like he's calling in from a phone that was like, the Germans are coming. They're seizing the new city. We need to send some troops over. It's like it's like a war piece. It's not even you know what I'm saying? They're like,
yep.
In the latest news, we have stormed Iwo Jima. And it's like that bubbling, whatever, crackling, whatever it is. Okay. Fat Jason Kid, let's see what you got.
Number one Lions fan from Iowa. And just wanted to give a little bit of a talk about what you guys said last week about where the Lions are. I think that what you're really underestimating on this team is how fucking horrible our schedule is. Because, like, we get to play a last place schedule and probably the easiest schedule in football as I'm looking at it here. Because I definitely think there's a chance we beat the Commanders, the Vikings once, the Bears, the Giants, the Jaguars, the Jets, and then I think we could probably beat one out of the Seahawks and the Panthers, and now you're actually talking about those 7 wins. So 6.5 doesn't sound as crazy to me. Because, I mean, I'm not even counting any wins against the Packers. I'm not counting a sweep against the Bears or the Vikings. I'm just grabbing one game there each. I think that there's a very realistic chance that this team can win like 7 games. Do I think we have a playoff shot? No, I think we need to get a quarterback in place and potentially then evaluate how our coach is. But
a quarterback.
We're going to be a lot better than what you guys are estimating.
Hold on.
That we're going to be.
Okay, this is the first off.
All right, look, let me say something real.
We need a quarterback and a coach.
That's what I was going to say. He just throws that in at the end. We need a quarterback and a coach. Bro.
Also, we're not. By the way, you're not the fucking New York Giants. You're not the Patriots. You're not the Packers. You're not the Steelers. You're not the 49ers. You're not any team with any sort of historical relevance. You need a quarterback and a coach, and you're the Lions, bro. You're the fucking Lions. And by the way, I love that we just reel off random last place teams like, by the way, the teams in your division, the Vikings and the Bears have had double the amount of wins you had last year. The Seahawks, double the amount of wins you had last year with Russ out. The Giants had more wins than you last year. The Panthers had more wins than you last year. The Jets had more wins than you last year. You're playing all these last place teams. Why are they not suddenly getting better? Only the Lions are the only team that are getting it. The Commanders won twice as many games. The Commanders won 7 games last year. And Carson Wentz is better than Jared Goff.
I think the Lions win 4 to 5 games. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I said. The 4.5 games is the over-under.
Yeah. Vegas has it 6.5. I say the Lions win 4 to 5 games. But when your holes are the 2 most important things, the coach and the quarterback.
You need a coach. You need a quarterback. You need to be a team that people don't retire playing football to leave. That's your fucking starting point here. All you need to be is not a punchline of a historically bad franchise. You need the most important position on the field, and you need a guy who's running the team. You're right there. You're right there.
So here's what the Lions have going for them.
Yeah, I would love to hear it.
3 of their first 4 games are at home. Like that's something. They get the Eagles, the Commanders, both at home. Then they travel to Minnesota. Then they get the Seahawks. Like my point is, you could start. I think you could realistically start 2-2 with 3 of your first 4 at home. But then let's look at it from there, Joe. Let's just look at it from there. Then you travel to New England.
Let me ask you one question, though. All right. You have $1 million to spend. Okay. You have 1 million. Okay. You can split it up however you want. You can't bet that they're going to go 2-2 in their first 4 games. I'm not allowing you to bet on 2-2. You can put any amount of your million on 1-3 and any amount of your million on 3-1. And fuck it. Let's go 0-4 and 4-0. How do you spread that money around?
I put the majority on 1-3.
I put $750,000 on 1-3.
Yeah.
I put $250,000 on 0-4. I would not put any amount of money on 3-1 or 4-0.
Yeah, I agree. I'd put 0 on 3-1 and 0 on 4-0. And again,
so they could be 2-2 if everything goes right. If their quarterback suddenly plays at a competent NFL level, if their head coach starts scheming instead of fucking biting people, and if they're not the Detroit Lions.
Your coach was doing up downs, man. Up downs. But after those 4 games, I mean, listen to this. At New England, bye. At Dallas, Dolphins at home.
LLL.
Dolphins at home. Dolphins are going to be a lot better. Dolphins, Green Bay at home. At
Huge
Chicago.
L, 50-point L.
At Chicago. At your Giants. Home against the Bills. Home against the Jags. Home against the Vikings. At the Jets. At the Panthers. Home against the Bears. At the Packers. You have to at least start 2-2. If you start
what? To get to what? To get to 7 wins? I mean, Nathan's got him as a outside shot at a wild card.
Yeah, he needs to be psychologically evaluated for that.
This goes back to Reddit. This goes back to the Thanksgiving Reddit. Remember when the Reddit was just like, what are we supposed to do?
You know what I love? You know what I love more than anything? I love optimism like this time of year. It's August 1st. You're like, oh, yeah, man. The season's around the corner, about 6 weeks, 5 weeks. NFL season will start. You're like, looking at the schedule. You're thinking, yeah, man. And we all know NFL, there's always surprise teams, right, Joe? When is that going to be the Lions? I'm talking like surprise good. Rarely.
I mean, people call me deluded when I talk about the Giants last year. And I'm like, I think the Giants could go 7-10 and win the division because the NFC East sucks. They don't have the Packers in their division. You know, you don't have even like a mediocre Vikings team that every year wins fucking 8 games. Let me ask you something. Again, let's do $1 million to spend. One of these 2 teams, the Bears or the Lions, have a magic season and win 11 games. How much you put of the $1 million on the Bears? How much you put of the $1 million on the Lions?
$900,000 on the Bears. I mean, again,
like what?
Is it, let me put it this way:
do you have one sole reason? Do you have one sole reason that you could justify the Lions suddenly improving and the Bears not?
Well, no, I don't. Look, and the truth is, in all this, guys, I will be the first to say I don't know enough about the Lions. I don't know enough about their offseason moves. That's the truth. But what I do know is I lived in Los Angeles for all those years. I saw Jared Goff. And I know his ceiling, and I know he's also not, without Sean McVay, he's not like a game. You know what I'm saying? He's not a game manager. He can't. Let's say the Lions have.
Here's what I know. Here's the only things I need to know about the Lions. I know how good Jared Goff is a quarterback. Not. Your coach has shown me that he is nothing but a meme. Your coach is a meme. I've seen literally no evidence that your coach has any idea what he's doing. Zero. And you're a historically mismanaged franchise.
Sure.
The idea that things are looking up, Detroit fans, are you out of your goddamn mind?
Well, and Matthew Stafford is evidence of that. He literally won a Super Bowl the minute he left your team.
New champs. Give you guys the belt. You might be the most delusional fan base in all sports.
Now, these are just a couple people, but the Reddit was not helping.
I'd argue you don't even want. What do you want to win 6 games for?
Yeah, you need a quarterback.
I'd argue a smart Lions fan wants to go 1-16, get a new coach and quarterback. I agree. I agree with Cat Jason Kidd. Yes, you need a new coach and a new quarterback. You know how you get those? By firing your old coach and drafting a quarterback. Unless your hope this offseason is Aaron Rodgers rapes 30 people and suddenly has to get sent to the fucking Lions.
He's going to play 11 games still then.
No, I'm saying, and then suddenly it's Deshaun Watson and has to join the Lions next year. Otherwise, you got to draft a QB, right?
Oh, yeah. When the most important position on the field is your most glaring hole, that's not good.
Are the Lions immediately improved this year if, forget money, immediately improved this year if the 49ers lose their mind and just say, we'll take Jared Goff straight up for Jimmy G?
Yeah, they're better.
Yeah, they're better.
And saying you need a new coach and a new quarterback, that's like saying I need a new engine and a new steering wheel.
Bro.
Like that car's not going very far. I just need a new engine and a new steering wheel. What?
Yeah. I just need a new engine and I need 4 tires.
What are we?
Wait, what are you talking about? You have a car in your driveway on blocks with no engine in it? Yeah, but dude, I'm an engine and fucking new tires away from winning the fucking Indy 500. Like, dude, what are you talking about? You haven't started it. How do you even know? You don't even have an engine.
Oh, I love it. I love delusional fan bases. I love it. Actually, now that I'm thinking, I think you are right. Remember the Lions fan who called in to go off on Randy Ruther, or Randy called to go off on the Lions fan? Wasn't there some Randy Ruther Lions fan? Was it on Twitter?
Dude, I'll tell you what, as a guy who lives, in the greater Hollywood area, a guy who exists in the Hollywood business, I am being handsome and being a halfway decent actor away from being a fucking star. Like, what?
Yeah.
If I was just better looking and I could act, I swear I'd be famous.
It's unbelievable. Hey, Lions fans, I'm here for it. Bring it. Bring all the
I was
takes.
going to say that before we started. I was like, this has shown me that I think this might be our money-making opportunity. Like, I know we said we were stop betting, but if you want to bet the over, what was it? 7.5?
6.5.
You want to bet the over 6.5? I feel like we should use like the Thust Fund to just front these bets. Like, let's go. Let's put all our bets in.
I'll have to wager a new house I just bought.
Yeah. Roscoe needs fucking new pancreas. Like, we need fucking.
Seriously, 310-359-8365.
That's the amount of money that we're willing to bet against the Lions. It's a 31,800,000.
Randy Ruther just texted us. F that Lions fan. I called him a retard and you wouldn't play my message. Oh, that was it. Yeah, he went a little too hard at him, man. I was trying to protect. I still try to protect the dirt balls. They're like my children sometimes. Oh, unbelievable. Oh, this is great. Joe, this will give me something. This is kind of like the Jameis Winston thing. You're right. Jameis 101, where like we really enjoy the interceptions. Now this is all it takes. Now I have a vested interest
but like, here's the thing. I
In
don't even
Lions
care.
games.
I don't even care. Like, I don't even care. Like, I
do.
hope for Nathan and Cat Jason Kidd that I hope they're like, in a way, I hope that they're right. And like, great. I hope you guys win 10 games. The only problem is there's absolutely no reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, the Giants were bad last year. The Giants were a last place team, but the Giants have, a history of figuring out. This is the equivalent of me saying the Giants are going to go 14-3 and play in the NFC Championship game. This is the equivalent.
Oh, dude, this news just gets better. First Hard Knocks, is it tonight?
Is it?
Oh my God. Creeps up on you, huh?
That's crazy.
I think it's tonight. Oh yeah, it's tonight. Amazing. There you have it. We got something to look forward to tonight, which means Detroit Lions fans, we will probably be doing a mini recap of the first episode.
It's great. Oh, by the way, how turned are Lions fans going to be? There's always the team, the people that get turned based on Hard Knocks.
Oh God.
I'm telling you, this is a money-making opportunity for us.
This is unbelievable. Well, give us a ring, 310-359-8365. And you can also follow us on Twitter with those hot Detroit Lion takes at The Dirty Sports, or on Instagram, or can follow us at Andy Ruther on Twitter. Joe is at Fix Your Life.
I am. And it looks like Trey Mancini is going to the Houston Astros. Might have to mix in a slides this week, post-deadline slides. So keep that up. You can follow me on all social media at Joe Prano, except Twitter, where I'm at Fix Your Life. Besides the new Detroit Lions Hard Knocks, there's a couple of other things that you can look forward to. You can look forward to August 25th at the Hollywood Improv Lab. I'm in discussions, and I think it's confirmed. It's soon to be confirmed, but I think Lachlan Patterson, former Kooks Comedy co-host, is going to be on the show. It's a great show, basically Joe Prano and friends. August 25th, Hollywood Improv Lab, 7:30. If you want to come, get your tickets now. Go to improv.com, get your tickets. I would appreciate it. I would appreciate you getting some tickets early if you're listening to this. I will be at the Comedy Cellar in Las Vegas the following week, August 28th to September 3rd or 4th, I believe, September 4th. Also, kind of sneaky little thing. I did a Joe Prano podcast with Pete Sestaro this weekend, my new possible co-host, because as I said on the show, I was charged for a year of SoundCloud. So I was like, fuck it. Let's bring it back. So if you need more podcasts to listen to, go listen to that. We talked all kinds of great topics. And then, keep your eye out for slides if we're going to have to recap some of this trade deadline stuff.
All right. Well, that is our show. We'll be back on Thursday with another full episode and definitely recapping from the Detroit Lions Hard Knocks. You guys have a great start to your week. See you in a few days. And as always,